What is the worst food you can eat for Sari?
Biryani.
Salin.
Bacon.
Peanut butter.
Man, I was very excited to do this podcast. That answer just went so many different directions. No, let's not get into that. Well, let's get into it.
Okay, variety.
I take mine back. I actually have peanut butter.
Yeah,
every
that was such a
morning.
cap.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think of something that like really has a heavy.
Does it have an effect on you though? Like even if you
it's fine.
It has
I feel
a
like
good
that'd be
effect on me.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
I think actually. Wait, you had biryani this morning. You were
That's
just
why I
telling us.
roasted him. I said biryani.
Oh,
I said
Oh.
bacon. That is the worst
Well,
thing
no,
you could
it's-
ever have.
turkey bacon.
Why
Regular
bacon?
bacon.
Why are you
Bruh.
eating that?
Why would you ever have regular
I would
bacon?
assume that you're saying halal bacon.
It's good.
Yeah. I'd be
Regular
having
You never
bacon.
had it?
Yeah. For suhoor?
I've actually never had like pork or anything like that. Like, you know,
Accidentally?
Good job.
accidentally. No,
Oh,
that's a good-
accidentally.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like
That's
that's
crazy.
a good thing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that
you guys
is.
have accidentally, right?
Whoa.
Why are you putting us on?
Don't flame us like that.
that.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
No, I have had it more than once.
On
It
purpose?
tastes, it tastes like what it looks like, to be
Is
honest.
it good?
No.
Oh.
You liked it.
I'm not gonna
I'm just
lie.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm not gonna lie. We accidentally had ham at our like iftari one time, like at a community
Why
iftari.
is this guy
It
here?
was at a mosque, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
and it hit.
God.
I'm not gonna lie.
Whoa, y'all forgot that I basically grew up on pork, right?
How was it?
How
I
is it?
mean, you're not missing much.
Well, Koreans eat a
unless-
lot of pork.
So
Right.
Koreans eat like their prime dish for pork was just bacon without seasoning or being smoked.
What?
Just straight up take the
raw?
pig belly and no, not raw.
Raw.
Obviously you cook it. obviously you cook it, right? But they wouldn't season or smoke it or cure it like they do with bacon.
You just
Basically, they just cut the
grill
meat,
it?
cook it, grill it, and then that
Well,
was it. Okay, that was good actually. I will admit I did miss that.
I had,
what was
Stop,
I had
stop
a-
trying to influence our audience to eat bacon.
What was good?
I had Korean barbecue with Hassan the other day, and,
And left
I
me
can
out.
confirm that he was eating everything pretty raw.
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
bro.
you're one of those. Do you not cook
No,
your
I-
steak enough?
Yeah, I
No,
saw
everything
like
was
one
cooked
of the
enough.
pieces of steak. It was like really pink, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's the way I want it."
Really pink?
Yeah,
You're exaggerating.
I'm not. Remember,
You're-
there was
you're
that one point I
literally
was like,
talking to
"Hassan, that's
Frost.
not." I was like, "That's not cooked," and you were like, "That's the way I like it." It would like touch the grill, and Hassan's like, "Take it off! It's too long."
So why
I had
not
to have it.
biryani though?
I have to like I can't like Sari to me is like breakfast.
Mhm.
Like
You
I
can't have heavy
I can't.
foods.
Well,
No,
also,
like, I'll eat
also
heavy
Dawar
foods, but,
does
like-
not eat desi food a lot, anyways.
That's true.
Yeah.
He would have said, you could have said lunch, dinner. He would have been like biryani.
That's true. Yeah,
So-
but I need like breakfast items. Like my Sari will be like eggs and like peanut
Bagel.
butter, bagel.
Mm.
What was yours? Amber?
honey.
Mine was salin, like curries, any curry. Like I can't do. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
it leaves like a weird feeling.
Oh yeah. Especially when you're sleeping, you can like feel it.
Because the thing is, we're not meant to
Smell it.
like fall asleep right away after eating anyway. So then you eat salin, and also salin's acidic, I think. And I don't have acid reflux, but I can only imagine how that would be for somebody who did.
Oh, and the uncles probably go down on that too.
That's
They probably have the reflex.
you gotta have like
Uncles are laying in bed like letting all the gas out. It's just a gas chamber in the bedroom right after eating salad.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like the best is having like a bagel thin with cream cheese or avocado and like egg.
Oh, that sounds so good right now
Fire.
too.
And that keeps you throughout the whole day?
That keeps me perfect.
Dope.
Wait, so you disagree with your own self now, Frost?
Go peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
there we
Peanut
go.
butter.
Yeah, he literally eats peanut butter for Sari. Like I see him.
On toast?
Yeah,
With a, I eat
Just
peanut butter
peanut
with
butter.
a spoon too.
That's nasty.
It's so good.
That's
and he'll
so
throw
dry.
it in his oats.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning in to an episode of Strange Flavors. My name is Shimmer.
I'm peanut butter and Frost jelly.
My name is Amber.
And we have a special guest today here.
Co-host.
The legendary, back from the dead.
Back from the dead.
Dawar is
Were
here
you
with us
dead?
today.
You guys
after
might have
a
been
long-
He didn't
wondering
say
where.
his name.
He wasn't done introducing himself.
He always does this actually. Every time he comes on the podcast, he comes up with some random intro that has no end.
Because everyone knows
He's
who
like,
I
back.
am.
He's like, back.
Oh,
back.
everyone knows who you are?
He doesn't even need to say his name.
They're like, oh my god, the salute god is back.
But this is the strangest and greatest podcast in the game. This is brought to you by Alif Theory. If you'd like to email us or send us your music, strangeflavorspodcast@gmail.com. You can watch this beautiful video. We have multiple camera angles. We have the stress cam going on. We have 4 people in 3 different cameras. You can watch that on YouTube. Comment, like, and subscribe. please. If you'd like to support this podcast, there's a link down below. You could be part of Strange Flavors Town, Bobber's Bagels, Cassie's Cupcakes, Airhouse Ices, Freehouse Flaffles, Uslam's Apples.
Freehouse Apples.
I did not mess up.
Yeah, you actually got it right that time.
I'm pretty sure you
That
did.
time.
Yeah, he always gets it right. You're the one that was backing him up last
Hassan,
time.
come on, bro.
I don't know. I've
I'm
never
just
heard you
salty.
say
I'm
it
just
right
salty
yet.
because I never get an introduction.
Oh.
It's on.
Well,
It's on. It's
Hassan,
on.
you're always
true.
It's on
And
the
also-
the ex pork
true.
eater.
No, but no, you. The export addict.
He said export eater. Export.
Pork addict.
No, but he did. He said we have the stress cam over there.
Yeah, I did. But we need it in
No,
our
we need
Yeah,
a
but
lower
not the,
third.
not the
We need a
name.
lower
Not
third.
the name behind it, right? It's just I'm the stress cam, right? I got no name.
We got Isan on the stress cam.
Hassan on the
Hey,
stress.
there you
Obviously
go.
stressed right away. Right in the intro. An early stress.
Oh my
Really
gosh.
stressed.
I'm always stressed. I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. Always stressed.
Always
Oh my
stressed.
gosh.
But he's grinding for us and he's helping us a lot. So he's the reason we look so good is because of Hassan and sound good too.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
There you go.
That's what I'm talking about.
Every episode, should we do
Every
that?
episode?
Every episode, yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm down. If you guys are down.
I'm not.
Not.
Okay.
No, absolutely.
All right, so
Sorry,
he can
son.
do it.
I'll do it.
See, there you go.
I'll do it.
Consensus.
But if you'd like to also be as sexy as Hassan, you can get merch at strangeflavors.store.
We have dope new merch out also on ronopono.com. We've got the new Ramadan Essentials collection, so make sure to cop that. We got Halal Gap, Gains for God, and we actually have the Gains for God himself here.
Ooh.
That's why I don't need an intro.
Goodbye.
So make sure you cop that in
Cop
his
it.
honor.
Yep. You can work out in it, right?
Yeah,
He got one.
I got one.
Nice.
So you'll
I
see
have
me
one too.
getting
We can-
shredded.
You
we
get
can wear
the
ours together at the gym.
you get the muscle tank.
Yeah, but the muscles aren't included. That's something you're gonna have to work on.
Let's go. Which
You-
one do you get?
I got the Gains for God in a sweatshirt and a
Nice.
t-shirt.
You're gonna work out in it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, so the other day I came downstairs, right? And I just see this mug sitting there, this giant mug, and it says Papa on it. And I was like, did my dad get like, he doesn't do stuff like that. And it's so big. I was like, whose mug is this? It's taking up the whole, like, you know, the Keurig thing?
Yeah.
It's taking up the whole thing. Like, why does this mug say Papa on it? And then comes marching down the Sloot King over here. And I was like, whose mug is this? He goes, it's me. I was like, what? I was like, why are you Papa? Why are you drinking out of this? Are you expecting? What's going on? And then what happened? Like your gym got you that?
Yeah, so like the boys at the gym, some of them that I train, they call me like Father Gaines.
Oh my god.
So like one of them
Oh.
like saw the mug and he was like, dude, Papa Gaines, this is you. This is for you. So he got it for me.
Papa Sloot, Papa Gaines.
Papa Gaines.
This guy does not stop.
Instead of Papa John's, it's Papa Gaines.
Yeah. Whoa, I'm not trying to get canceled. Don't associate me with that.
Yo, they got good pizza though.
That's true.
Whoa. The
Yeah.
disrespect.
What?
We only
Oh,
support
sorry,
one
sorry, sorry.
pizza
Yeah,
over
yeah,
We
here.
only eat at Amber's shop that we're not allowed to mention on the
Well,
podcast.
aren't you allowed to mention it?
Because you said last
Yeah,
time we
you
couldn't
said that.
mention it.
Oh, I said that?
Yeah.
Oh, I lied. Give me that free publicity, sir.
All right,
I'm
what
just
is
kidding.
it?
It's just pizza bowlies.
Let's go.
Which one though?
No, we don't need to do all that.
So people have been asking on the recent vlogs that you weren't in it, and then overall just saying, you know, where's the hour?
Yeah.
So what's going on? Why are you
I missed the hour.
why
I
are you
missed you
hiding
too.
from the people? Have you changed? Some people say that the Sloot King is no more.
Yeah, he's retired.
true.
Oh.
I am following the story of the last airbender. When the world needed me the most, I vanished.
Wait, is that what's supposed to happen?
Will you come back, what, in 80 years?
Yeah, you'll see.
Wait, doesn't the world need, the world needs you most, isn't that when you're supposed to show up?
No.
No,
Oh.
he disappeared.
I disappeared. That's why. I
That
wasn't
seems like a
reminded.
useless character.
And he comes
Amber, you don't know Avatar. Don't do that.
Okay, well, the way
That's
he,
disrespect.
based off of what he described, I had a right to say that.
No. Avatar does not get any disrespect.
Well, he
On this
disappeared when the world needed him most, so
It wasn't his fault. He was just a young Aang.
well, he should have known better.
Speaking of Avatar, I would like to show. Can we get the foot cam?
Why is there like a foot showing in every episode?
Because look at the Fire Nation
Literally,
socks.
Frost is obsessed
Prince
with his
Zuko is in the
dusty
building,
feet.
everybody.
Make sure you go to Faras's OnlyFans. The
Only feet.
Only feet.
Only feet. The Fire Nation socks. Okay, take a good look at them.
At least it's not as bare feet like that other episode.
Yeah, this
It's
is much
on.
better actually.
It's on.
Oh, yo,
Oh
chill,
my
chill,
God.
chill.
Oh my
It's on.
God.
We can
Yo,
take
that's all right. I censored
What?
it. It's on you guys now.
He asked for it.
Okay, but I got to give a shout out because
Now what are you gonna do?
guest-
Put it on with one foot?
yeah, I'll put it on afterwards. The guest today actually got me these wonderful socks. So
You're
shout
welcome.
Oh.
and what? No, not you. No, not the co-host guest. Not the co-host guest. The guest
He
who
got you a mommy mug.
yeah, mama mug.
Mama Larry.
Wait, is your wife gonna have like a mama mug? Like she's gonna be Mama Gaines, Papa Gaines, and then Baby Gaines.
Oh my God.
That's cute though.
That is really cute. Nike.
But this episode has been a long time in the works. We had to wait till we got the space right. We could do it in person because this person actually means a lot to me. Just because of who he is, how he carries himself.
Dude,
so
you're gonna make me
really
cry.
excited.
It's
You
a
gotta
great
stop. Don't ruin the intro.
Don't take it.
So the stranger this week is a singer-songwriter who's been expressing spirituality through his artistry for over a decade now. He's performed his music around the world and in recent years created a space to explore and understand faith in the modern age. So without further ado, everyone please welcome Alman Nusrat. What you probably just heard was an Alman Nusrat song, but what we really should have had was the Mortal Kombat theme.
Why?
Because Alman is like the biggest Mortal Kombat fan that I know.
That
Yeah.
true?
Yeah. I mean, one that you know, yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Because-
okay, so the friends you grew up with are all pretty big fans, or?
Yeah, but even amongst my friends, I'm probably the biggest fan, to be honest. But it's funny because people are always like, oh, like you must know. It's actually, I just like the story and the creativity behind it. I don't even know how to play the games that well. So
Oh, so you're not even good at the games.
no, I don't even
So
even
are
have
you the
recent
biggest
game.
fan?
I'm not. I'm just like a selective,
Interrogating.
almost like a selective nerd.
You
I
like the
guess.
idea of it.
Yeah, I like the concept of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we just watched the movie a few days yesterday, or 2 days ago.
Yeah, Friday
Yeah.
opening night.
We needed to watch IMAX
Oh,
because Alman was like, it needs to be. Well, this was the first time you were watching Mortal Kombat in theaters.
Yeah,
right?
and
So that's pretty.
so Mortal Kombat came out in like 92 or 93. That's the year I was like born. So I was like playing it in diapers with my older cousins. And then I had to wait like 25 years for like a reboot to happen. Because since in 1997, they made a movie that was so bad that they never touched the franchise.
But you
for
like
20
that
years.
one, right?
The
I thought you
second,
liked-
the
the
second
second
one
one
was
you
really
don't like.
bad.
Okay.
The first one's like a classic. Like it's so bad
like
it's
funny.
good. Kind of, yeah.
It's funny.
And this remake was interesting, but hopefully it sets a precedent for like sequels and stuff.
I hope
so.
they make more because I personally like. I don't know every character, so like I'll ask Alman, what's the concept of this, whatever. And even my sister, she doesn't know it like that well, but from an outsider perspective, I understood everything because they said the names and the whole movie was in the spirit of the video game
Yeah,
where it's like, it is really violent, but it's also like really casual right afterwards where it's funny.
Yeah. It was also very creative, like the fight things they do,
Yeah.
right? Like he'll literally like take out a dude's heart and then like hold it in the air and stuff like that. And it's like from the video games. Like they would just do creative ways of, I guess, killing these people. But
Yeah,
my
it was
gosh.
way more true to the game than I would say.
It's like,
the
what
movie.
is this?
Yeah,
What
sounds
is
so
going
Yeah, but
on?
ask your
Probably.
brother. He's probably like a big fan like Alman. 'cause
Probably, but
Yeah.
that's the
Probably.
reason why me and my brother don't have the same interests.
Final rating.
It's really over the. I mean, even Neha saw it and she was just like,
Yeah.
the heck. She actually enjoyed it though. So
Yeah. Fun fact, actually, Mortal Kombat's the reason why there's like ratings on games and
Yeah.
stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Because it's so gory. Parents were like, what is this?
and there was a whole like thing in like with I think it was Joseph Lieberman or other politicians, and they played the game like in Congress and stuff, and they're like showing everyone. They're, like,
Mortal
we need to-
Kombat is just like the two people that are
Fighting,
across
yeah.
from each other, and there's like KO, right?
KO.
Yeah.
Fatality.
Finish
Yeah,
him.
there you go.
Yeah. Final rating?
I would say it's like a 7.
That's
Out of
pretty
10?
good.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's not a bad movie. It's just like you watch it, there's no depth to it. It's like just people beating up for 2 hours, and then that's it. And just
Yeah.
hope for a sequel.
Yeah. Alman was over in Maryland. He lives in Connecticut. So this past weekend he was staying with us in Maryland. It's always awesome when you're here because it puts a high respect on me and Daur as well. Because like when we were at the mosque, I think this is what a a lot of people like you for is that like, you know, you're obviously very relatable. But then, you know, he was leading the prayer and everything, and all the uncles, they'll be like one of the uncles after Alman was done leading shook my hand. And he was
Why?
like, great.
Why you?
Yeah, I was like, good job. Like, great find. But
That's funny.
it's awesome though. But like, in all seriousness, that, you know, Alman is this person who he comes off as like,
Did you
very
mention he's your
welcoming.
brother-in-law yet?
he's my brother-in-law.
There you go.
I'm your Lala.
Lala, yeah, I call him Lala.
Is that what that is?
Like
Brother?
Punjabi, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, it's awesome because, you know, he comes off very welcoming, very sweet in nature. But then you wouldn't expect it, I think, from like if you just saw or whatever. And I think
He looks like a jerk, but is that right?
no, an outsider. Like the
Intimidating.
outsiders, the greaser.
Yeah, like you
greasers.
have really nice hair,
Mm-hmm.
the facial hair, the outfit. You look pretty intimidating.
You look
That's
put
funny.
together and then, you know,
Yeah.
are also
And
kind.
The way you
he
get to
lived
know
in
me, the
London
best
for
name.
he lived in London for a while, so it was like
He's
he had
got
the
the
whole
London look.
the UK look
That's funny.
with a
Yeah.
leather jacket and all that.
Yeah.
The only thing he's missing is a cigarette. But
You always,
It's not too late.
you always add a cigarette
start
to,
tomorrow.
to make somebody even cooler for some reason.
yeah, I mean, like in London, everyone smokes, so
Yeah.
that's
or a
like thing.
toothpick. Toothpick's my alternative.
Toothpick, I like.
Yeah.
That's my thing. But that's what we're trying to basically. That's why I was excited to get you on the podcast because whenever I even just speak to you on Instagram Live or something, people are often like, "Wait, he actually talks about faith and spirituality in this way,
Yeah.
which is relatable to me, but you know, it comes off not in a aggressive way that people are often used to being raised in that way.
It's
It's
like you're like
Ramadan
a
and it'd be-
it's like you're a comfortable person to ask
Yeah.
questions that like you just might not know the answer to that, you know, otherwise people might think I need to go to like an imam or like, or I need to find somebody who is like well rehearsed.
Yeah. And it's
but
like
you're-
off base, like
easy.
just genuine interest.
Yeah.
And
So we
kind of
I'm also surprised he hasn't been on yet.
Yeah, well, we wanted to wait till we could get
Yeah.
in person again, but
Yeah.
I
that's
think for us
basically
and I
Super glad
have,
that
for us
you're
and I
here
have had
today.
like
a beef.
70 like precursor conversations at your breakfast table before this. So
Yeah.
like we're,
But we're super glad that you're here today.
yeah, we want to
Thank you
get
so much.
behind all of that. But let's start with what people know you for, right? Is a lot of people know Alman. He's been making music for over a decade now, and it's spiritual music. So what's mainly like? How do you define yourself as an artist, and what's the difference between that and like nasheed, a nasheed artist, I guess?
So like the origins of this is it's pretty interesting because when I was around 14, that's when I kind of was interested in making music and stuff. And I was inspired by just like bands I was listening to. I was listening to a lot of Linkin Park at the time, you know, teen angst and all of that stuff. But what was compelling about their music and their lyrics was that there was like depth to it and it was like poetic almost, you know? And so I really loved that. And when I was listening to, you know, songs that were coming from Muslims that was like faith conscious, it was kind of like, to me, it wasn't as real as when relating it to like my emotions and what I was going through as a teenager and through daily life. Like the songs at that time, they're meant for kids at the time. It's kind of like, you know, Allahu Akbar, the sky is blue. You know, those are like the like nursery rhymes, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking for something
we
a little
are
bit.
Muslims,
Yeah,
here we come.
exactly.
Is that real?
Yeah. God is good. God is great. We are Muslims.
Upsy
here
daisy,
we
now
come.
don't be lazy. It's time to go to the masjid.
Yeah.
I've never heard.
I've never
Really?
heard
I think that's it.
You
That's
didn't
a
have like
recent
a
one.
I've never
mosque,
heard
like
these.
cassette
Well, you grew
tape?
up in a very like the
Yeah.
Baltimore ISP community, which
It's
is
pretty
like
big, yeah.
pretty big.
So I had like
I'd never heard.
I
any
never
of these.
heard.
I had a Gari Saab when I was in Pakistan, and he'd slap me
Yeah.
and just be
Read
like,
Quran, that's it.
Yeah.
And it was like-
Yeah. I mean, there were like
they were cute
songs, like that.
but they're definitely like I would say if
it's
based
not
off
Linkin Park.
no,
Yeah,
but
it
they were
wasn't
like
like-
age range
Yeah.
5 to 8.
and there was
Yeah.
like nothing.
Yeah, I tried so hard to go to the mosque.
Oh my gosh. But
in the end, I didn't want to. But yeah, so I mean, that's what was around at the time, and I was heavily influenced by that. And my first passion was drawing, so I was just really into art in general. And 14 was also the age at which I started to contemplate life in general, and just mortality and what that means. And that has been a theme throughout my life, just like contemplating over mortality. And that kind of drives my spiritual journey. And yeah, so, you know, I was just making demos in my room, and my journey with my father and that whole relationship really inspired a lot. And I think we'll probably get into that.
Yeah,
but
we'll get into. I want to ask you. So a lot of times we hear that there is not much of a relationship between music and our religion, particularly Islam. So, we hear a lot of times like music is haram, just stay away from it completely. How did you make sense of like being able to balance both, especially if you're going through, finding and wanting to discover your sort of faith at that age?
What's really important for people to understand is that if you're looking for a religion that's just completely black and white, Islam is not for you. Because Islam is very nuanced. Islam takes into consideration people's customs, their cultures, their traditions. It takes into consideration so much because it's meant to be natural for human beings, not something that's culturally predatory, right? We're not trying to like kill culture, and we're not trying to destroy things. Wherever Islam has went throughout history, it has accented the culture that's existing there. And one of my teachers has said that Islam is like a clear stream, and it takes on the color of what's underneath it. So if you go to China, you'll find an Islam that's authentically Chinese. If you go to Africa, you'll
Except
find
the camps.
right, exactly. But if you, like the traditional places,
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
and if you go to Africa, you'll find Islam that is authentically African. And growing up in the West, in America, the question is, what does it mean to be authentically Muslim as an American, right, or someone growing up in the West? So that kind of also inspired and drove my stuff. But going back to what you were saying earlier about Islamic or spiritually inspired content, I just consider myself a singer-songwriter who happens to be Muslim, because at the core of it, when you find anything beautiful, anything with depth, it does relate to spirituality. And all of my artwork goes back to this idea of we are not spiritual beings having a physical experience, or physical beings having a spiritual experience. So all the emotions you go through in your life, whether that's happiness, sadness, grief, whatever, that's part of the spiritual journey. And Rumi had said, like, whatever emotions come to you, welcome them. Like it's like a guest house. Just welcome them in and contemplate and think, and it'll help towards your growth.
That reminds me of like how you just said that it kind of takes on the form of like what you're doing at the time and relates back to it, having purpose and all of that. You got me these like avatar socks. And it's interesting because I find so much spirituality and relation in Avatar of those things about like, what does it mean to have purpose and relate everything back to spirituality and all of that. So that just reminded me of that.
But yeah, I was going to ask like, it was relating to, your journey and stuff. But sometimes I hear like people say like music is haram and stuff like that. Like, how would you, answer to that?
Yeah.
And did you have guilt with that when you first started?
Yeah. So going back to what I was saying earlier, Islam is a nuanced thing. There's differences of opinion within Islamic law, and that's a real thing. So anyone who's telling you that music is categorically haram, they're just lying, because there's been a debate about it.
They're just lying.
Because there's been a debate about this for 1400 years, and you're telling me all of a sudden you have definitive proof. I mean, if people before you who are closer in time to the Prophet, peace be upon him, were talking about this and having different arguments, and Imam Ghazali, who's one of the most recognized scholars of traditional Islamic history, he said, for those who say music is haram, you're basically saying like the bird songs are haram. Like music is around us, right? Like you can't just deny it and say like, oh, it's that doesn't work. You have to be a little bit more nuanced with that, especially when you're considering culture and what role arts in music have in the propagation of your faith or ideas, which in today's day and age, you see like, art and culture is how we literally share ideas, right? And
how it really popularly, I don't know if that's the word, expresses ideas.
Right.
Like people get so much inspiration and education through art and culture or influence in general.
Yeah.
And even if somebody is to listen or watch something that brings them closer to faith, for example.
I feel like art makes religion sometimes like beautiful and tangible. Like, for example, even when it comes down to like an Islamic saying like on a wall or something, it brings so much beauty and like light and like comfort in a home.
Right. And I was going to comment on that, but right before that, I was just going back to the music halal haram, debate thing. Ultimately, music is a tool. And just like you can have a knife and you can use that knife to like kill someone, or you can use that knife to like cut an apple and share it with someone. It's just about how you use it. And when I went to my teachers and I had this conversation with them, they say like, if you want to meet the devil, you go to Hollywood, right? Like that's a saying, like the devil's in Hollywood, right? And the reality is like you can, I forgot what I was going to say. You can, with music, it's a tool. It's how you use it, right? And the devil, this is what I was going to say. The devil has taken the entertainment industry, right? And he just ran with it. So you'll find the worst things, the craziest things, the things that are completely outside of, the fold of Islam in the entertainment industry. But like, what have the Muslims done with that, with arts and culture, right? Like, have we elevated ourselves? Have we progressed? We used to. If you go back in Islamic history, we like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, like spiritually inspired ghazals and like all of these things, right? Qawwali, right? These are modes by which people communicated ideas and religion and spirituality. So it's like we've kind of stopped because there was at some point in history, people tried to like get rid of culture and like try to suppress it. And with that, these agents of culture, which are music and arts and food and whatever it may be. And so for me, music is a tool by which you can communicate very important ideas. And one of my teachers also said that an artist is like, an artist goes into the deepest part of themselves and takes out things and brings it to the surface so that other people can actually see it. And the artists are the ones who do that, whether they do it through architecture, whether they do it through music or paintings or whatever it is. And another thing is that in the Islamic understanding, God is beautiful and he loves beauty. And that's like a hadith as well. God is beautiful and he loves beauty. And so when you see something, and another thing is beauty is objective. In the Islamic understanding, beauty is objective. And so that's why when people see things like the Taj Mahal, when they see things that are beautiful, like you don't look at something like that and be like, that's ugly. Mm-hmm. Like naturally something within you is like, that's beautiful. And so similarly, beauty can be communicated. But what it requires is that you purify yourself. Mm. You have to make yourself capable and bring yourself to the point where beauty actually can come out of you. Because if you're constantly tainting yourself, what's going to come out of you is just more poison that you're poisoning other people with.
Yeah, like so people could excuse it.
Yeah.
Like find, a way to be like, oh, well, and someone might listen to this podcast and be like, oh, well, Alman said, this way. So it always, we always talk about this. We market the heck out of this idea of intentions. Mm-hmm. And that's what it comes down to a lot.
Intentions and just once again, the overall journey of like purifying yourself, understanding who you are. There's a saying that says like, the one who knows himself knows God. If you know who you are, you'll know who God is. Mm. Just by the nature of what you are, right? And so, that really comes down to being an artist is in many ways a spiritual journey in of itself.
How did you bridge that gap? Because you primarily started, with music and then over time had this spiritual journey. So I'm assuming. And how did you bridge that gap between the two of them? What was your like research process like?
I think, like I said, when I was like in my early teens, just contemplating on life and death and what that means. It just always seems strange to me that even at a young age, for some reason, I don't know where this came from, but death was something that was talked about. And I think for many Muslim youth, especially like growing up in the mosque and stuff, they talk about death, right? Like it's just, you're Muslim, you got to know that you're going to end your life here and you're going to,
Yeah, so some imams will come up on like a Jummah and they'll say like, without any hesitation, look you straight in the eyes when you're like 7 years old and be like, brother, you are next. It could be you or your friend. We are all going to die. And then the kids are like, oh no, Dad, what?
Even the idea of like hellfire is brought to kids at a really young age too.
Yeah. And so here's what's really interesting about my personal journey. And I think it speaks volumes about the experience of many people out there. The town I grew up in, Stratford, Connecticut, was separated from the rest of the Muslim community that we knew. They were in places like Norwalk and Stamford. So they're about half an hour away. So those kids, a lot of my friends, they actually went to, to study Quran, and they would study in certain circles, like, how they do at Islamic schools. And in those circles, they would have the, typical experience of like, getting hit and like, if you're there, and scaring tactics and stuff like that. And I grew up in an environment with just my grandmother, and she would just teach me things and kind of explain things. And I'd just be like observing my older sisters, and I'd be like, oh, okay, like whatever. I didn't even have I didn't go to a traditional school to like learn the Quran, right? I actually finished reading the Quran when I was like 16. Like I didn't do it when I was like 7, you know? And when I went to learn it, I actually went with the intention of like, what does this mean? It wasn't just because like, oh, just read it and finish for no reason, which if you think about it, is kind of crazy. We tell our children, yeah, by the time you're 10, you must have finished this book. And then you don't really
know what it says at
and
all.
then basically don't read it again until someone dies or someone gets married or, you know, it
Or
just
unless
like,
you want to, like,
yeah.
I'm like now learning
yeah.
at this age that like what it
Yeah.
actually means. But
Yeah.
then it was all about memorize, which like when you're a kid, you know, it is a lot easier to memorize and everything. But
And
definitely,
that's probably
you don't
the
know.
intention behind it. They just want you to memorize it. And there is merit to that because the Quran has an impact on the hearts. And so things that are instilled with you at that age, later in life, it'll manifest and you'll find your way back to the
There
religion.
has to be like either tools given to you at that younger age and how you can interpret it, whether it be like, you know, going surah by surah and having like a overall talk of it. But I feel like at a young age for myself and most experiences I've heard, it's like read right through it and congratulations, you finished it.
Yeah.
They have these crazy Quran, not crazy Qurans, but like
Oh my
crazy
God.
Quran, but like very electronic ones where you like put like a pen over the line or something and it'll translate it in any language, like in 90
Wow.
different languages now.
Yeah. But going back to the question you had about where that connection was made, because of those conversations about mortality and stuff, you know, I couldn't shake that off. I couldn't shake the idea that, okay, you're telling me all of these joys that I feel, this love that I feel, you know, it's just gonna end. And what does it even mean? If it just ends, like at a young age, I was just thinking, okay, if it just ends and lights out, nothing ever mattered. You don't matter. None of the choices you make matter. The world is a dark place. We're just an accident of nature and nothing. And that to me was just like, that is really weird because out of all of nature, human beings we develop language, we communicate, we make song and art and music. And like you're saying that happened out of accident? Like that's just, there's no purpose behind that. Out of all creatures, it's not like you see a bear doing a Michael Jackson dance, right? Like,
I mean, you might.
I mean, it depends like what substance you had, but like, you know, but yeah. So like, you know, you don't see that. We're unique. And this described in the Quran as well, right? What's unique about human beings, that we have intellect. And so, which ironically is like, you know, that's what brought me to this path. It's thinking about these abstract concepts. And so, yeah, I mean, ultimately that informed me of my like mortality and where life was going. And
what did you do? Hop on the internet?
there's so much to talk about, man. Like, it just in terms because I feel like it's like there's a thing. But yes, the internet was the first place to go. But I had people I knew in person, and actually I had a dream that inspired everything from the beginning. And then when I had met certain people, including my brother-in-law, he kind of helped me on that journey because he was connected to people.
From his sister's side, not me. I'm not that cool. Yeah, Alman and I have like these, you can just listen to him talk about these like abstract sort of conversations. We'll stay up like all night just hearing about it. But you mentioned your father. This is something that's really important to your story because I think, you know, one thing that even my dad appreciated about you so much was your, you know, courage when you came over by yourself and, you know, had to represent your father during this whole marriage process and all of that. And he respected it so much. But, you know, may God rest his soul, your father died while you were pretty young. How did that impact, you know, your life going forward? And what did you go through mentally while all of that was happening?
So 14 is when I kind of had an interest in the spiritual journey, right? And I was experimenting with, you know, art. 16 was when my father started getting ill. And the whole journey of his illness was just absurd. Like it just was crazy and very rare. And just to summarize it real quick, he took a trip to India. He came back. He had an infection in his eye that we thought was like pink eye. And then 48 hours later, like, you know, the redness, you know, got worse. So they took him to the doctor and they had to like remove his eye. So he basically went from being like the breadwinner to now being handicapped by like, losing his eye. And then, with that, my mom, by the grace of God, had gotten a new job around the same time. So she supported the whole house, and my father basically just wasn't able to work anymore. So he's passed away when I was 19. So I would say about 3 years, he was just deteriorating, and the eye was the first thing. And then it ended up being cirrhosis of the liver, which was, according to the doctors, caused by long-term diabetes. So, and people don't really think about these different organs and their functions and stuff, but the liver, when basically it would cause the protein to build in the blood or something. And what that does is it causes a person to go into like a fog, which is kind of like a dementia, right? It comes across as dementia. And so they are very, very difficult to deal with. And there's certain situations in which, we're just crazy. I mean, like basically my teenage years in which people were often, out having fun, having social, gatherings and stuff like that. I was just at home. I had to give my dad his injections. I had to do everything.
It was like a long, painful process,
Yeah.
not just like a quick sort of sudden thing.
Yeah. And we're talking about things like, and I only say, when I share his story, I don't do this in a way to dishonor him anyway, but just to illustrate my point, which I'm getting to.
Of course.
When my father was ill, we had to look after everything, right? So helping him use the restroom, giving him baths, and seeing the emasculation as that process as well, where my father would cry as my mom would bathe him because he was like, I wish I could do something for you, right? Like deeply emotional, beautiful moments that showed his humanity. And he was a very kind person. He had all sisters, and he was just an amazing person, mashallah. So I saw that journey, and there's other situations in which, like, because of the state that he would get into, he would like fall onto a pair of scissors one time. He sat in front of a heater until his leg got burned. Like, he was just out of it, and we just had to constantly monitor.
That's a lot out of a teenager.
Yeah. So at that time, I was thinking to myself, going through it, I'm just like, why me? Like, I wish my life was normal, and like, whatever a typical teenager.
Yeah, with your friends especially.
Yeah. And I lived further away from my friends. I didn't drive. I drove.
Teenage years without all of that is already very difficult.
Yeah.
Then you add that.
Yeah. So that was tough, and eventually, but my father was very forward thinking. Like, he supported my artistry, and like, he bought me my studio equipment, and so he always believed in me. And I was very close to him, right? So he was like my best friend. We were always like best friends, and I'm also the youngest in the family. So when he passed away, during those teenage years, I mentioned mortality when I would reflect upon that when I was 14. But then there's like those years where I'm just busy taking care of him and doing these other things, and I forget. It's natural for a human being to forget from time to time. Then when he passed away, then everything came rushing back, and I'm just like, what happened to my dad? Because I was there for the ghusl, which is, for those of you who don't know, is basically the washing of the body before the burial. And I remember seeing his body, and I'm just like, this is the most surreal thing, to see someone you interacted with who would call out your name 500 times a day, and now they're just a lifeless body. And my question that would not leave me was, what happened to his soul? What happened?
Nothing. Keep on.
Oh, yeah. So what happened to his soul? And oh, okay.
Sorry.
And where did he go was the question. What happened to him? And what's striking to me is that, like, I kind of bear a resemblance to him. So as I get older, I look in the mirror and I see my father, but I've seen his dead body. So it's almost like knowing one day what I would look like being lowered into the grave.
Yeah.
And what I would look like lying on the table, right? And for me, it's just this thing of, where am I headed? In all of these things that I'm giving importance, why am I giving that importance? And what should I be giving my importance to? And most importantly, how do I live a life of purpose? And going back to those instances where I talked about, what I had to go through with him, I talk about those things because it's when he passed away that I realized love, true love, is about service. So if you're claiming to love humanity, loving your brothers and sisters, loving people, how are you serving them? And most importantly, with artistry, is vanity the end goal? Is being famous the end goal? Or is there more to that? Or are you trying to help and heal, and vanity and becoming famous is just a byproduct of what you're really trying to do?
Well, that's really interesting though, because that's the field that you chose to go into, where these things are, a selling point, if you will, where, you're going through this thing, you're exploring your artistry, and you have this critical moment in your life. And then, you have this awakening. From there, where do you decide to go when it comes to you're saying, what's the point of all these things? So how do you build yourself back up and say, let me pursue my passion, which does come with these things that, you're explaining, the vanity and all of that could be.
I think, right after his passing, I basically, the curiosity was at its peak of what happens to us. What is the spiritual journey? And there was a book. I had already known about certain scholars and certain people I was listening to and I respected. And there was a couple courses as well that I took. And one of them was about a book called The Lives of Man. And it's a book written by, it was written quite a long time ago, but it's basically, according to the Quran and Hadith, what is the journey of the soul? And the human being actually has 5 lives, right? It's before we came into this earth, then the womb of your mother, and then this life that we're living now, and then the barzakh, the life in the grave, and then the day of resurrection, which is counted as its own life, and then the afterlife. So these are the lives of the human being. And so the book goes into detail of what those stages are like according to the Quran and Hadith. And so that opened my eyes of okay, well, now I know what the journey is, right? Now I know what's going to happen. And now it's just a matter of okay, well, how do I build myself up? Like what you're saying, right? How do I go from point A to point B? And then that was a matter of just studying foundational things, foundational rulings, foundational beliefs. One of the most important things, which we'll get into when we talk about, the mantle and stuff, is that, what do we believe about God? Because especially in an age where atheism is just so rampant, right? People ask you, do you believe in God? And you're yeah, well, what do you believe about God? What are the attributes of God, right? And it will differ. If you ask a Christian, Jew, or a Hindu, or a Muslim, those ideas will differ. And that's very important. And so that was stage one, and then you continue from there. So yeah, that's basically how I kind of started that.
So where did you, I know shortly after that you started really pursuing music seriously, and you went to California after, your family has gone through this. You have 2 older sisters and a mother, and now being the man of the family traditionally, how do you leave the home and have an understanding of I need to do this?
Yep. And have the faith to, be successful at it.
I think at the time, because I was so driven at that age, 19 or 20, for me, it was just I'm going to go out and I'm going to, do this music. And because I just want to remind people of whatever it was. And in retrospect, when I look back, as an artist, you're just constantly learning and you're constantly growing, whatever.
Trying.
Yeah. And so looking back at the journey, I see now that it was fueled probably more by vanity than it was by any noble intention, right? And so, and that's just me being really honest with myself. I'm literally just
that's hard to say. So.
Yeah, and so, but I can't shy away from that because that's reality. And so, alhamdulillah, I went through that journey. I met people. We did an album. I did a tour. And from that tour came the recognition of certain individuals that landed me in Dubai, where I lived for a bit, and then I did music.
Who was that kind of found you in music and gave you a shot?
It was so Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam, who's a rock and roll Hall of Famer, famous artist who converted to Islam in the 70s. His son-in-law. So Yusuf Islam lives in Dubai. And his son-in-law was there, and they had a studio out there. So, at the time, it's crazy because, with all this technology and stuff, at that time, we're talking about 2012, teenagers were not on GarageBand and Logic. That was, you had to really build yourself up to even have the money to do that and get into those programs. And the knowledge of audio equipment and interfaces, that how common it is today to know that like I need an interface for my computer. It was like unknown back then.
Like you had to pay for studio time.
Yeah, back then you were still paying for studio time. Back then people were still buying CDs. Okay, so I was like, my first album was the last of like when people were buying CDs. And so it put me at a really unique time in general music. But
Good times.
yeah, I really
CDs.
like CDs. But yeah, so I ended up there, and that was a huge learning experience. And I'm so indebted to the people, Yusuf Aslam's family, and for the love that they showed me and the care and concern, but also the kind of, it was like a conditioning. Like I will never forget, as harsh as it may seem, first day there, despite all the things that I had been through at that point, the emotional, all of those trials, it wasn't an excuse. Because I remember like my first day in the studio, we sat down, listened to my first album. They had found out about me because of my first album. So we listened to my first album, and my manager at the time, they just made fun of my album. They're just like,
ripping it apart.
They're like, yeah, like this sucks. You did this wrong. Your timing is terrible. You need to fix that.
Did that feel bad?
You need singing lessons, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was like humbling, right? But I felt like I was in good hands. So I was like, okay, well, if anyone's going to teach me how to do this stuff, it's going to be these people.
Right.
So yeah, there was, that's also where I met Dr. Umar and stuff. So that was a really significant part of my life. And that journey continued until like last year, from Dubai and then to the UK.
Yeah. Did people like, you obviously have a certain aesthetic that you like, but people, when we think of like these spiritual singers or nasheed artists, we think of like, some of Yusuf and these guys, and they don't look like, you. So did people even take you seriously or at least, question your intent when you were touring the world and going around and performing and saying like, oh, I'm doing this through spirituality and stuff?
Absolutely. I felt judged all the time, to the point where it actually, I think it hindered certain relationships where people just didn't want to be associated with me because they felt like I was doing it to get the girls, what is he doing? What does his look? Because, and then once again, being really honest with myself here, they were kind of right.
It happens.
It happens. And the reality is that what I was doing, like my look and how I was trying to, it's basically like saying, like trying to be the Weeknd and then being like, yeah, but it's about Islam. And for some people, for young people, they may kind of vibe with that, but like, yeah, I like the style of music, which for me, it was always about the music and the instrumentation and stuff. But you have to look at it holistically. You're basically embodying the antithesis of Islam and then saying that, but this is Islamic. So you're kind of clashing two things together. And for most people, naturally, they're kind of like, that doesn't sit right with me.
Wait, so you're saying that your look didn't?
My look was basically like, the way I dressed, the way I presented myself. And then in the videos, it's just like pouting and like, trying to be cool, whatever. For me, it's like looking back now, I'm just kind of like, I don't like it. It makes me feel weird because it's kind of like I felt like I was forcing two things together and trying to make people see me in a certain way.
So you understand like what their viewpoints were.
Absolutely. And to a certain extent, I agree with it. And the extent to which I don't agree with it is like, when people are just judging you flat out with no basis.
Yeah, but just by looking at you saying that this guy is doing it for this.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one time I was in California, I performed, this guy came up to me and he was just like, as soon as I saw you, brother, like I made judgments and I just want to apologize because your song brought me to tears and I recognize who you are and what you're doing. Even though he didn't really get who I was, but he understood the music. So
do you want to share, you were sharing like that story of Umrah, I think yesterday, about like when you went there. Do you want to share that?
The haircut thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did Umrah 2 times with my sister.
Pilgrimage, right?
Yeah. And it's just funny experiences, man. But like you see a lot of different kind of people. First of all, both times I was there, someone said something about my haircut. Like so the first time I'm literally 3 feet from the Kaaba. That's the Kaaba. And I'm like here. And this guy just comes to me. He's like, your haircut's haram. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Right. And then
like at God's house.
Yeah. And then the second time I was that far from the Prophet's grave. And people don't, this is the thing, I'll get into it later, but you have to be conscious of how we're treating hearts and what we're saying. Words are like weapons.
The way you come off to people.
Yeah. And that could drive people away from Islam completely.
100%.
My teacher always tells me this story where it's just like, before you even say something, you have to ask yourself, like, is what I'm about to say true? Is it necessary? Like you have to ask yourself these questions. And is it beneficial? So, for example, a guy walks into a mosque, a new convert, and he's wearing.
I thought that was a joke for a second.
No, no.
A bar mosque.
Yeah, but like if a guy walks into a mosque and he's wearing, and this actually happened, he's wearing, let's say, gold earrings.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately the uncle will be like, that's haram. Men can't wear gold. They'll just like, go off a tangent. And the guy ended up leaving the mosque and just never coming back. Because he's like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
But think about the gravity of that. First of all, were they gold or were they gold plated or were they fake gold?
Mm-hmm.
Second, did you have to say that? Was it beneficial?
Was
No.
the timing even appropriate?
Was the timing appropriate? So the answer is no. But the crazy part is, for that moment, the person who said that to the man who pushed him away from Islam, that man has to answer to God.
Mm.
That's like a huge thing that, that's just like a whole other tangent of just like how it should be. But, in Mecca, in Medina, that happened to me. But the funny part that you were talking about was I was like, you're supposed to shave your head. You should.
Isn't it just a trim?
I trimmed.
I thought it's bald. Like
No.
Yeah.
straight
So
up
for
bald.
for
I thought it was
Umrah,
like either you shave your head or you only have to cut off an inch.
yeah. So I did that opinion.
Yeah.
And everyone else shaved their head. And I was just like the one guy. Everyone is like in thobes, shaved head, part of this crew. I show up with my plaid t-shirt, my plaid shirt and jeans and my boots, my Clarks, and I have like my hair.
You're asking for
Oh
it.
my
And
God.
I'm
Wait,
just like,
during Umrah?
yeah.
Wait, don't you have to wear the like
After.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's like for the rest of the trip.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
for the rest of the trip, all the group photos, you just see bald people, and I'm just like there with like the shades. And I'm like Johnny Cage. Right?
Johnny Cage.
So, but yeah, I mean, they're just stages of my life that they were kind of funny. But
yeah. Alman, before COVID, we were doing a little bit of a tour ourselves. It's a very unprofessional, unorganized tour that we called a tour, but it wasn't a tour. But anyways, we had a show, right, where Shimmer is a nice, handsome young man, and
I'm so curious where this is going.
and
I think I know this.
and a young lady walked up to him and said, hey, let's go back to my hotel room. You are the one I want, right?
let's do some
So-
taxes. Yeah.
So it wasn't going to be taxes that were going to be happening
Yeah.
in that hotel room. But like we have, when we do these things,
Hold up. I said no too. It was.
he said no in front of us. No, I'm just kidding. No, but when we do these things, right, we have each other, which we're very lucky and blessed to have. Because I think that, being honest with myself, I don't know if I'm like going to be on my own, like what sort of curiosity that triggers, right? And then, but the blessing part of it is like whenever we go out, when we're invited to different things, we can enjoy each other's company and feel above, anything that would take us off our course of just being ourselves, right? When you are doing all of this music and you're going around the world in different places and you're performing,
And people are like, cheering for you and all that stuff.
how do you balance yourself and
The possible
contain that
women
stuff?
throwing themselves at you.
Because of this certain kind of conditioning, spiritual conditioning before I went on that, there was always an element of like, check yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're not that great. And there's always gonna be people who are more amazing than you, better looking than you, more talented than you. And if people are showing you appreciation, then just, be grateful for that and don't abuse it. And of course there's times when like, the devil gets the best of you and you're, trying to find your way and stuff. But, ultimately, like the person I am, by whatever act of God, I would catch myself before falling too deep into this thing of like I can't like not coming back, right? Because fame is almost like a disease.
Attention overall is like at an
Yeah.
all-time high where we're just like super hungry for it, and we don't even. A lot of us don't even know it. Like especially the younger kids. They don't know that like they need that attention, and it literally they have like withdrawal when they don't have it. It's like a drug.
Yeah, and this brings me to with social media and how that's being navigated and stuff. Obviously social media, no one's arguing that good can come from it. But from what I see and my standpoint and where I see just understanding what our society needs right now and what Muslims need, I see it as almost like an obstacle, because it's something you really, I mean, we're talking about, like I have a young female cousin, and we found out that she was like posting videos of herself, like, dancing to like explicit songs on TikTok, but she doesn't even know what the words mean. When we were younger, we didn't have these kind of things like TikTok where we can post videos of a share with the world where it's there forever. If we were listening to inappropriate, like you were listening to Eminem when you were like a teenager, right?
Still do.
Yeah. So, but we weren't like, actively like sharing that with the world.
Yeah. Nobody knew I was listening to it in that way. Yeah.
And, but now it's like unapologetic. Like, this is who I am. I like this music. I'm, and not even understanding what it means or the implications of it. But like, and that's just one thing. It goes into music and media or whatever it may be, but it's all there. And it, to me, it kind of, it's a bit troubling. But I try to look at the positives and try to like, and I never kind of, people are only operating at the level at which they understand. If they understood, the depth of it, they may back away. So the idea here is that we're not meant to judge them. We're meant to do our part in educating or do our part in sharing that knowledge, if that makes sense.
It's good that you had like an early sort of exposure to it so you could figure out these things. I think a lot of us, will post that one TikTok video that goes viral and then we're like, oh, what do I do with all this fame now? And then they'll do anything. So basically, Shamir.
Alman could have done the WAP. Who knows? On the TikTok if he was.
Yeah. Shamir, so take notes. Before our next tour, we're getting you a spiritual course. So you're
Why me? That wasn't me.
No, because you're the one that's getting. You're hogging all the ladies. So we need to have you a spiritual
For us,
course
is jealous
beforehand.
that he's not getting all the
No,
ladies.
the funny thing is he's not mentioning the attention that he
that he gets.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
I never got asked to go to a hotel.
What about
They
the
still-
DMs though?
I don't. The DMs are forbidden, brother.
And nobody approaches you at the shows in that way? Oh, okay.
No, I don't think I've ever gotten approached like that.
No, you have.
I don't think I have.
Not like, oh, let's go to a hotel, but fan behavior.
No, it's like,
Yeah,
hey, let's take a picture.
But who knows their intention?
They're like,
Yeah.
it's like kids that have like the Fortnite voice.
Oh my god.
That's
We
scary.
literally perform at colleges, so that's not true. They're literally not kids.
I was going to say about the whole, the attention thing. It's like, because of social media, like how impulsive we are and just posting and doing all these things, but like, we're very impulsive. Like we check our phones, like, and immediately there's a whole science to that. Right. But what effect does it have on our behavior? And one of the things we can just practice in day-to-day life with anything is just like, before you make a choice, just think about where those choices lead. Just take like a moment to think about it. And so in this instance where there's like, woman who, a female
themselves at
or a
Shamir.
man, right? Throwing themselves, at a female.
Oh, yeah, Amber too.
Right. But, because I don't want to make it seem like it's a girl, it's just in general, it's an issue, right?
No, Amber gets the men's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
God.
So, but I mean, I feel like this is my thing. I just feel like women are very intelligent and they do this by like just naturally they think about the consequences.
That's true.
So I
Facts.
feel like men are pretty impulsive. But like for me, what helped was like some advice I had gotten once where it was like, okay, well, let's say there's a girl walking and this is actually a story in which there was a group of students and their teacher was there and the woman walked by and one of the girls saw the woman. They were like kind of entranced by this woman's beauty. And so the teacher, instead of, just like yelling at them, he kind of just made them think. He was like, all right, so which one of you is going to go talk to her? Right. And they were kind of like, what? Right. And he's like, yeah, so one of you is going to talk to her. And then what's the next thing? Like, are you guys going to like go on a date? Are you going to like go somewhere, talk a bit, whatever? Then what? Are you like going to go to her house? Are you going to sleep with her? And then what happens after that? Are you going to, either she's going to have a kid or you're just going to leave her after that? And then you're done? Got it? Done?
Dang, he was like, oh, you think she's cute? You trying to leave her pregnant?
Yeah. But he's basically just like, where does it lead?
Well, he's talking about those guys the three brown guys that stand in the corner of a club and just stare at the girl. Like that question applies to them, right? Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
You think that she's going to turn around and be like, you're so hot.
Yeah.
Let me go home with you.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
But what he's saying to them is just like, why are you even the fact that
Entertaining it.
Yeah, because this is like it's pointless. What are you just going to mess with someone's emotions and then you're going to like fulfill your own desires?
And to be honest, when you make it not an option in your head, it's so much easier to not have that battle later.
Yeah.
Like if you don't even entertain that when you first see the person, then you're not even having to worry about like, oh, if I go to their house, is something going to happen? Da, 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 da. It's a lot easier to
Well, isn't
it's
it
like
also
precautionary.
oftentimes they just have a lot, like they don't have a lot going on, at home or who knows when they're looking for that kind of stuff. I feel like.
When who's looking for what?
Well,
like a fan that wants to be with an artist?
No,
or-
not a fan, but like a person in general, like looking at somebody, you know, trying to do like short-term, temporary.
Yeah, well, I mean, off of that point, I think any pursuit that you have in life that is other than God is just an effort to fulfill the voids within your own self. And you're trying to substitute God, whether that's drinking,
I guess
drugs, sex, whatever. You're just trying to fill something in here that you're lacking. But that's like my philosophy of what it is. The condition.
I think
the
that's
condition.
where I was trying to say, like,
Yeah.
they're missing something.
Be careful, Shamir.
Yeah.
Why me? What the heck?
All the options
What do
out
you-
there. Yo, he be on his Twitch
Do you
stream.
need
and-
to
Bro,
talk about what we're lacking?
I'm very defensive, right? I'm very defensive. I get all these opportunities at me, and I'm like,
Oh,
no. I'm like, no. So
All these
I think everyone
opportunities.
else needs the spiritual cleansing.
Wow.
Alman, you mentioned Dr. Umar, so this is really neat. I think, especially nowadays, you know, we are constantly. I hear so many kids like, who do I turn to? Who can just give me the answers? Tell me what to do. I need a spiritual teacher. I need, you know, somebody that can guide
Frost
me.
is basically saying, I need a spiritual teacher. So where do I find one?
Bro, I need one. It's
Hacking
hard
me
because
too.
it's very hard to
Yeah.
come across. We have so many imams that come to our mosques and people that we come across that's just like, could I build a relationship with this person? Or would
Yeah.
it be that, you know, they just give it to me in this way? How do you find, you know, a spiritual teacher who you can have that relationship with? Is it like,
And trust.
what's the process of that?
Yeah. I think, first of all, there's definitely, the first step is just like starting the journey, right? Like, and what by starting, I mean like, pick up a book, whatever book interests you, whatever book piques your interest, start reading it and start to discover the depth that exists within this religion, right? And start to discover the depth within your own self, right? And uncover those parts that you never thought about before. That itself will push you to keep pursuing. And in that pursuit, the guides will come, the teachers will come, because it's like it's like God's pulling your heartstrings, right? It's not that ultimately God's in control, right? And so it's like, you know, there's a saying that, you know, you crawl towards God and he runs towards you, right? Take the first step and then you'll find your way. And what I also want to say is that for anyone who wants to start that journey, there will, depending on the sources you find, things that you read, you may find yourself becoming a bit hard-hearted. You may find yourself becoming.
What do you mean by that?
You might find yourself like you see this all the time, right? Like people will learn something and then they'll try to like stop everyone else from doing that thing and then judge other people from doing that thing. Like we often hear like, and it works in the opposite way too. Like a girl puts on a hijab and then the other girls are like, oh, like she thinks she's pious now. Like, you know, we know about her past. And then it happens the opposite way where the hijabi may look at her other people and be like, don't they know better? And like, and you often see this for people who may go for like Hajj and Umrah and come back and all of a sudden they're the authority and they're like telling people what to do and stuff because they've had their transformative moment. But the reality is that it's a journey. So don't get too cocky. Don't get too arrogant. Just study. And ultimately you'll find that there will be variations in opinions because you'd never want to be someone who learns something, tell someone else that thing when you're not even sure if that's categorical, right? Like that opinion, that's haram, that's halal. And then you end up breaking that person's heart. And then 10 years down the line, you realize you were wrong. Now you have no way to apologize to that person and the way you made them feel. So, you know, just start the journey, start learning a bit. And then there are teachers, there are certain individuals and scholars that I trust, that I look up to, that I feel are foundational to like this generation of Muslims and what they've done for Muslims in America.
Well, how
And I
did
think
you
you're
how did you
amazing.
come across Dr. Umar? Because this is somebody that is a big deal. You know, I remember Rami Youssef even shouted him out. He said, you know, don't watch my show to learn about Muslims or whatever. Learn from these people. And Dr. Umar was, on top of that list. And he actually even came all the way from Gambia to perform your nikah. So how did you find this person?
So when I was in Dubai, I was at the studio one day. Excuse me. And Dr. Umar and his teacher came to visit Yusuf Islam. They came to the studio just to visit. And I happened to be there. And I had heard about Dr. Umar before that. So he wasn't completely unknown to me, but I sat down and, we had a conversation and stuff, and just hearing him talk, I was just kind of blown away by the breadth of the the knowledge he had about various topics.
He sounds like Dumbledore.
Yeah, yeah. He's like a.
He should pull up to like other studios too.
He's like a Jedi.
Exactly. October studio too.
Yeah. But yeah, so just in conversations with him and more, not even conversations, listening. The first step to learning is listening. That's like foundational. So putting aside what you think and just listening. And that happened. And then I'm a student of his. And I remember there was this one moment, because from 19 till the time I met him, which is probably at 21, 22, there was this feeling I had of like, okay, like I feel like the music is okay. I was still in that point of like, is this haram? Is this okay? Like, should I be doing this? And I was still kind of confused until I met him, because he came to the studio. He obviously supported use of Islam and Cat Stevens and the music and everything. So that was interesting. And that solidified, okay, someone of that caliber understands that there's a difference of opinion. So then he came in, then he was with me and he said, and I expressed to him, I was like, I don't really know if what I'm doing is okay. And he looked at me in the eye and he was just like, what you're doing, someone can argue it's more important than what I do, because you're going to attract all the people that would never show up to a lecture. So he was like, and then he was also the one who said, like the devil never stopped. He took the tools and he ran with it. What have we done? Right? Have we built institutions? Have we facilitated that journey through arts and media and stuff like that? And furthermore, just to touch a bit on his work, he had a paper that he wrote that he published called Islam and the Cultural Imperative. And that paper is basically about, as I was saying earlier, how, Islam, wherever it goes, it takes on the color of that place, right? And it's not something here that's meant to destroy culture. So he's saying like, what does American Islam look like, right? And he basically says like, we have to be culture creators. We can't just consume what they're giving us. We have to create. So similar to like what you guys are creating, your content creators, and you're contributing to the culture, and you're giving something of value, something of substance, even if those who may tell you like, oh, like, well, it's not an Islamic show. It doesn't have to be. You're interviewing people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, and that is educational. That is helping people understand the variety of life and the variety of perspectives, and that's so important. And it's even more important that you guys are actually the Muslims that are doing it, right? Like it's Muslims who are doing it. It's not like an atheist who's sitting here like, yeah, let's learn about all these perspectives. A Muslim is, you guys are confident enough to be like, yeah, let's sit down and have a conversation, right? And that is respectable. And I feel like that's awesome. And this is exactly what Dr. Umar means in that paper about being creators of content. And that's why he's inspired people like Rami and others. And the way they do their things.
Brother Ali too, right?
Brother Ali, Azhar Osman, who's a writer I think he had written for Rami and other things. Dave Chappelle. I mean, like he's met all these people, like, he has these different relationships and stuff, but yeah, it really comes down to that's why I gravitated towards his teaching so much.
It's like the celebrity shake, how there's like the celebrity docs.
But it kind of indicates, right? Because you have all these people who are also in that field trying to find their way and trying to stay grounded. And he's helping those individuals. But I wouldn't say that he's like a celebrity sheikh or like, because he's, he is just a teacher who he spoke in the language that artists finally understood.
Go ahead.
I think it's really cool that you're able to find like a mentor that, you feel welcome by and that was able to make you feel confident in who you are. Because sometimes, especially where I grew up in like the Baltimore general area, the two things that you said was not to be too cocky and not to be the person that turned somebody away from Islam. And I noticed that sometimes in the mentors that we had, even myself, I had a mentor that I really look up to in my youth group. And I had so much respect for her and so much love for her. And I would just eat everything up that she said. But I was the only girl of the group that didn't wear a hijab. And that was just simply because the other girls grew up at the mosque from a very young age. I had just transferred from a public school. And I ended up finding out that she was like saying stuff behind my back and didn't look at me the same and, didn't really look at me.
Send location.
Yeah, right. And, that carried with her demeanor to me throughout. And it honestly pushed me away from that community a lot because I didn't feel accepted or loved by the people that I looked up to so much. And if I'm looking up to these people and they don't accept me, maybe I don't belong here.
Right.
So I think it's cool that you were able to find a mentor, and I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah, and I mean, just going back to experience, because I feel like that experience is very common. You'll look up to someone who makes these complete like blunders and mistakes, and people who are not what they seem to be, and that scars us. It pushes us away, especially in instances where there's like people in positions of power, like scholars or whatever, that do like crazy things, and it's really heartbreaking. But at the end of the day, even for example, when the Prophet passed away, peace be upon him, I think it was Umar radiallahu anhu who came out and he said, those of you who used to worship Muhammad know that he has passed, but those of you who worship God know that he's always alive and he's always watching. And the way I tie that to this experience is like, we look up to people, but then they let us down because they're human. But we don't worship the people. We worship the creator of the people. And not only that, but which I'll get into when we talk a bit about the mantle, but it's this concept of ihsan.
Yeah. Stress kills.
Let's go. There's your shout out.
There's my shout out. Yeah, from the gas.
And the best part.
But this is the concept of like, what is the point of Islam? It's there to transform you. It's there to create the best version of yourself. It's not there to replace who you are. It's there to beautify what's within you. And if you take like an apple seed has everything within it to become an apple tree. Similarly, you have everything within you to be the best version of yourself. It's just about who's watering it, who's planting it, where's the sun coming from, right? Where are you getting your nutrients? And so, that's what it comes down to. And when we talk about Islamic spirituality, it's meant to transform you. And these people, when they let you down, when they do things that are unjust, unfair, uncool, it's not Islam. It's their own ego. It's their own, devils whispering to them, basically, and them following their egos. It's as clear as that. Yeah.
From what you gathered of, Dr. Umar's teachings and your own journey, every time, there are times where you struggle with like faith versus, you could call it the Western world or whatever, like cultural norms, whatever. And
Dunya.
Yeah.
The dunya, right. There we go. The world, worldly things. And whenever like if I'm to express these things, like I tell my sister something, she's like, oh, well, Alman expressed it in this way. And I'm just like, oh, that's like really beautiful. What is your personal philosophy of faith, the way that you see faith to yourself and those around you?
The way I see faith.
It's your philosophy on like, the way that you live your life through faith and all that.
I think everything comes down to love. I think that's foundational to our faith. And if we look at who we are, what we are, human beings, creations of God, we are put here for a reason, and that reason is to discover God. And we do that through seeking and attaining beneficial knowledge, which is part of our faith, right? And sharing that knowledge as well. And for me, the reality is that within ourselves, we have this longing for God. It's there. Everyone has it. But based off your experiences in life, whether those experiences are good or bad, some people get abused and things are altered within it's like their DNA being altered, right? Or like changed somehow, because it's like they're not thinking the same as they would have had they not gone through those traumas. And that ultimately stops them from pursuing the spiritual path or from, finding faith or accepting it, because there's so much baggage there that they have to go through. And that's why, like, anyone who tells you that if you're a Muslim, if you're watching this and you're someone who wants to pursue, the spiritual journey, you shouldn't exclude things like therapy. Right? Like, you can't be a person who's like, well, I'm just going to go remember God in a corner and read the Quran and everything's going to go away. And like, no, do the work. There's multiple sides to you. There's a human element. There's a biological element, right? You need to take care of those things. And that's also how you prevent yourself from harming other people. Hurt people. And so if you're just taking religion as some kind of costume to wear, a mask to cover up what's really inside, what's inside of you will ultimately come out and you'll harm people. And you will face consequences for that. But in terms of my philosophy of faith, like I said, it's all this grand love story. We're all trying to find our way back to God. And because of the experiences we have, because of what human beings do to other human beings, we try to substitute that void and fill that void with other things other than God. And the prophet, peace be upon him, he said that there was a poet before the advent of Islam. So they say like the Jahili period, right? The period of ignorance, right? Like before Islam. And poetry was a very popular thing. And there was one poet that he quoted. He said there was one poet who was true in his word. And he said that the poet had said, everything besides God is falsehood. So that's really how I see it. And anything you experience in life, everything that happens, all the relationships you have, it's God behind it. And you can either choose to accept that and find peace, or think that you are in control and try to swim against the tide for the rest of your life.
That's really cool. The last thing we wanted to touch on was, you yourself, after having Dr. Umar and other people in your life that taught you these things so beautifully, now you're working on creating these sort of spaces. You've made this thing called the Mantle that, I'll let you explain it yourself, but what's the point of making these spaces? What's the overall goal?
I feel like I always have this conversation, and we started today's conversation off with the same idea of like, it's kind of hard to approach scholars and imams and people with like really, with issues that are very close to your heart and sensitive and very real, right? Sorry. Issues that are very real. It's kind of hard to have conversations about that. I feel like the times that I've personally felt, I guess, like the most captivated and the
Like
most
a safe
inspired.
space? Okay.
Yeah, it has been in like smaller circles where everyone's being real, where there's a person there who knows what they're talking about, and there's emotional intelligence at the table, right? People know how to communicate. They know how to read people. They know what they're saying and how they're saying it, and they're not being idiots with how they're preaching, right? And you find a lot of that. Like all over YouTube, you'll find like self-prescribed gurus, right? Or like, Islamic helpers or mentors who are just saying things that are nonsense. And then they end up becoming YouTube celebrities. Like that's not what we should be doing. What we should be doing is seeking out the people who've actually studied it in these humble gatherings where you build a sense of community, a real sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. And you come together and you learn and you grow. And it's basically a sacred, safe space. Sacred in the sense that we're practicing Islam here. We're aiming for something greater. And it's safe in the sense that you can come as you are to learn Islam as it is. And I remember I went to my teacher one time, Dr. Umar's sheikh, his teacher, and I said, back in my community, like, there's people from all different walks of life. How do you communicate to the different groups of people? And he said, if people are going to come, just like welcome them as they are. They may even come with their boyfriends and girlfriends. Just let them come and sit in the circle because they don't even get that luxury in other places. They're rejected straight out. And I don't care if you're like, in all these conversations people are having, I don't care if you drink. I don't care if like, if you're like gay or whatever it is. It's just like, that's not the point. The point is, do you want to learn about the spiritual journey? Then take that step and you can do that.
Yeah.
And then what you decide to do after gaining that knowledge is up to you, and that's between you and God. But create the circles first.
I think also your space is really amazing because you have these things that like, as kids, we miss out on as Muslims growing up in the society where we're like, oh man, I don't get to celebrate Christmas. I don't get gifts on this. I don't get to do this and that. And from what I've heard about, some of Dr. Umar's sessions and then your things is like, there is that environment of like that sort of campfire clubhouse type of thing where even you've had in the Mantle like a gift exchange. Mm-hmm. So why is that important to include, as part of your programs?
So the way I see these things, like for example, when Christmas time comes around, we don't even celebrate Christmas. We're like happy because there's an energy in the air, right?
Everyone's joy.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Right. And so what's sad to me is that because we've been a part of that for so long, we've been raised around it. When the Islamic holidays come around, we don't have that same sense of joy. It's like a different kind of thing, right? It's like, yeah, we go to the mosque, get some Eid, and that's pretty much it.
There is that.
Yeah. There's
like that feeling, but we've never expressed it
Yeah.
outwardly, right?
outwardly, right?
Never
And
expanded
so-
on it.
Yeah, and so decorating one's home, beautifying one's home,
Shout out Party City. I don't know if you noticed, but they had Ramadan
Yeah.
decor for the first
Oh,
time.
really?
this year.
They do,
Yeah,
yeah.
they had a lot of
Only
Ram-
this year or like recently?
If they had it previously,
I remember
then-
seeing it at least 2 or 3 years ago,
yeah, but they like had an like a extended selection of it this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I forgot what I was saying.
wait,
You're
real quick
saying-
on that. Buy from like people that are crafting their own stuff, like from Etsy
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff.
personal.
Yeah,
Party
but
City,
also-
Party City's doing the corporate thing. which
Yeah,
is-
but
there's enough Muslims to
also
They're pushing
do,
it's a good thing to
also buy
normalize
from
it.
them because they know that there's a demand and it
That's true.
normalizes it for like the average Muslim who might not have
Buy from
access
both.
to that. Yeah,
Choose at your own will. What were we
yeah,
just talking
including
about?
those types of things, the gift
Yeah,
exchanges
yeah.
and this and that.
So for me, that's important because it's starting to revitalize and bring to center stage this idea that Islam is about love and mercy. It's about gift giving. It's about caring for your brothers and sisters, caring for your community, and it's just like it's almost like the more you study, the more you go into that. It's natural to us. More so than Christmas, because Christmas was like the invention of something else. Like it was not foundational to the Christian belief in terms of gift giving and Santa Claus and all that. That was like created, right? But for Muslims, naturally, just by merit of who we are as Muslims, we should be jumping with joy to gift and to celebrate and to love and to create circles and gatherings and all of these things. And so for the Mantle, when we created like the gift exchange thing, we do it for like, in celebrating the birth of the Prophet. Which for anyone who that may raise flags for, celebrating the birth of the Prophet is just something that can be done any time of the year, right? It's just something to celebrate the fact that the Prophet was born and
Yeah,
the
the
Prophet
life
sent
of.
him, in his life. And so to me, that's just like, that's beautiful, right? You're celebrating the life, the mercy of mankind by being merciful to others. And, that's a good way to honor the Prophet, peace be upon him. So yeah, that's where that kind of concept came from. It's just about, we need to create our identity. What do we do as Muslims during those periods of the year or just in general around the year?
You have so many amazing ideas, and I'm excited because I feel like you're just getting started. Even just last night, he put together like 3 beats. Like he's always, making music and just art and stuff. And so just let everybody know where they can keep up with you and the Mantle if they're curious to learn more and keep up with everything you're doing.
Yeah, right now my biggest focus is the Mantle, and the music has kind of taken a little bit of a backseat as I discover more about my artistry and the direction I want to take it in. But the Mantle you can check out on Instagram at Mantle of Love, and then mantleoflove.org will also be launched soon. It's up right now. You can go and put in your email address to get updates. But the form of that will take. It will be online, so there'll be like online Zoom sessions and Clubhouse and stuff, but then there'll also be in-person events. So that's pretty much what I'm up to. And then I had a podcast that I was doing with Imam Nihal Khan, who you had on your Instagram, I think Instagram Live or something. But he's a really cool
guy.
Yeah, he's a cool imam. And we had a show called Faith in Fine Print. So there's a couple episodes there, and we might be adding to those episodes. But those are the things I'm up to right now.
Awesome. People, please go follow him. He's incredible.
Do
And
it.
like I said, just amazing. Has great way with words if you haven't already heard this episode.
He carried this podcast.
And I would just say like you might see me kind of absent on social media. Like I'm not posting all the time. Like, that's just right now, that's not what I'm doing. But if you want to get a glimpse of kind of the things I'm saying and the depth of it, it's in my music. So if you check out With Light, which is the last album that was released, and it should be on all the platforms, and the lyrical content of that album, I think you'll kind of resonate with what I'm trying to say. And
It's on repeat for me during Ramadan.
It's really good stuff. And
Yeah.
it'll be linked below with the songs featured in this actual episode.
you.
I hope you had some time to think about this very next question because this is Strange Flavors.
Yeah.
Amber, let them know.
If you could describe yourself as any flavor, what would it be and why?
Oh,
We stumped the
caught.
man who has so many words.
Wait, I have to say, Alman is like the biggest snack fiend ever.
right?
And he's always all about the
he has
flavor.
a huge
So
selection right now.
you have a huge selection, but you got to let us know why that flavor describes you.
I would say earlier I said that, what inspired my journey and what inspires my outlook regarding faith and the journey is it all comes down to love. And I feel like a universal symbol of communicating love is giving roses. So I would say rose flavored.
Woo!
Wow.
Love it. The rose.
He went with the description first, then the
and
flavor.
then gave it to us.
Yeah.
Everyone loves roses.
Yeah.
And give
Like
when you give
Ruabsa
people
ice cream or
roses-
something.
Ruabsa ice cream. The rose water.
Ramadan.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
a
we're
good
having.
one. That's a good one.
Sharbat.
The rose, Alman Nusrat, my Lala. Thank you so
And
much for being
I
here.
just wanted to say thank you to you guys for all the really cool things that you're doing and inspiring people to stay creative, and you're part of a movement, and I think it's really, really cool.
Aw,
Michelle.
Thanks
thank
for
you.
always supporting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually, like I said, it's incredible having
Yeah.
you in our corner because, I think having people like-minded that want the same sort of things and are headed, hopefully towards the same direction, and can, talk with each other. Like, it's incredible that I have you whenever I need any sort of guidance. So
And he's
thank you for
accomplished
being
a
there.
lot, so it's like a huge cosign.
Yeah, it's a blessing for sure.
Actually made it all up.
All right, thank you, Alman. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Strange Flavors. It's been another week.
Another flavor.
A little less stranger.
We'll talk to you next time.